welcome to Kent Tonight live on KMTV. I'm Cameron Tucker. Here are your top stories on Thursday, the 6th of November. County Hall chaos. KCC's reform leadership faces legal challenges from former members.
I'm currently taking legal advice regarding defamation of my character.
Data dismay. Ramsgate named as Kent's most deprived town in new survey.
We have very particular challenges in Thanet, partly because we're surrounded on three sides by sea. That makes some of the things that you would normally do for economic regeneration somewhat challenging.
Joining the Fab Four, KMTV's film expert Chris DC talks about the former Maidstone schoolgirl announced to star in Beatles biopic. Our top story this evening, Kent County Council leader Lyndon Cumcarran and Reform UK are facing legal challenges from former members of the party. One expelled councillor is threatening to take the party to an industrial tribunal, while another is investigating a claim for libel. Ollie Leader has been at County Hall in Maidstone all day and joins us from there now. Ollie, a very busy day. What's the latest?
Cameron, I've been here since the early morning for what are a lot of legal threats now facing Reform UK and Kent County Council. Let's start with Isabella Kemp. She is the latest councillor to be suspended from the party. She's also been dismissed from her Reform UK Central Party job. She's going to take them to industrial tribunal. That's what she said today. Meanwhile, fellow councillors Robert Ford and Bill Barrett have not only launched an independent reformers party, but Robert Ford has faced unofficial complaints which he denies about being inappropriate with women. He has now come out and said he's going to take legal action, libel action against KCC and Reform UK. Let's take a look at what was said at the press conference earlier today.
I'm currently taking legal advice regarding defamation of my character by by Reform UK and KCC that occurred on October the 13th. I intend in the coming months to pursue this with vigour.
At this point in time, we're in advanced discussions with at least 2 additional members that may join the independent reformers. We don't know whether they will, and we don't know whether they won't. What I'd like to say to members of the press today is that this grouping is a warm sanctuary for people that have been expelled, mistreated, defamed, or in general just basically abused by the leadership in there.
Now, the latest suspension of Isabella Kemp brings the total number of Reform councillors that have been booted out of the party, suspended from the party, who have lost the whip, up to a total of 9 in their first 6 months. The opposition leader, Anthony Hook, he's a Liberal Democrat, he says this simply cannot go on.
Kent County Council is in a state of crisis. We've got a budget crisis. There's an £80 million hole in the budget, and the Reform Party have put forward no serious ideas for how they're going to deal with that. They refuse to answer questions today about whether they'll be raiding the reserves or putting the council tax up by how much. We've got a care crisis. The CQC rated our care services as inadequate in May, and we haven't yet heard from Reform a serious plan to fix that. And there's a political crisis. Now Reform have lost half of their majority in just 6 months. I understand people are placing bets on when the Reform administration is going to collapse, whether it be Christmas or Easter.
Now, let's talk a little bit about what Lyndon Cumcarran, the leader of Kent County Council, has said. Obviously, she is the Reform UK figurehead here at Kent County Council, and she says it's business as usual. It's been a minor distraction. She said it's quite frankly a little annoying that she wants to focus on delivering services, local government reorganisation plans, her budget in the coming weeks and months, that none of this really impacts. Though she says she's not going to specifically comment on anything any of these councillors said, but it does show there is a continued clash behind the doors of County Hall. We don't necessarily know when it's all going to end.
A bit more about Lyndon Cumcarran a little bit later on in the show. Ollie, thank you very much for joining us. A lorry driver who had more than 40 migrants in the back of his trailer is among several caught this year amid a spike in arrests in Kent. It comes as the National Crime Agency has issued a warning to lorry drivers saying criminal gangs are increasingly targeting hauliers, offering thousands of pounds to move people in and out of the country. One case involved a Romanian driver caught in August with 44 Bangladeshi and Pakistani migrants in his trailer. He was jailed for 3 years. Authorities are urging all drivers to stay alert, report suspicious activity and help dismantle what they describe as the business of smuggling, as NCA Deputy Director Craig Turner told us.
In some cases, the drivers are known to actually assist. Others have turned a blind eye in relation to leaving their vehicles and obviously allowing that activity to take place. Obviously, this is quite a way of individuals to make extra money. Some of them see that as being pretty much low risk. In fact, it's anything but. A lot of the containers are contained and sealed, putting vulnerable people at risk. Drivers that do get caught, obviously face life-changing prison sentences. And in essence, it's just not worth the actual risk. So the NCA, National Crime Agency, are sending out a clear preventative message in order to stop this type of activity.
Next tonight, a new study has revealed Ramsgate town centre is the most deprived area in all of Kent. The seaside town has shot up the rankings from 997th to the 48th most deprived area in the entire country in just 6 years. The data from the Index of Multiple Deprivation is produced from a range of factors, including income, employment, education, health outcomes and crime, as Chloe Brewster has been reporting.
I would prefer it if we were saying which is the best town, which is the most interesting town.
More than 70 neighbourhoods across Kent now fall into England's top 10% most deprived. That's according to the Index of Multiple Statistics released last week by the government. I'm here in Ramsgate, which is the most deprived area in the whole county.
From hosting a bustling tourism industry in the summer, an impressive royal harbour and the largest Wetherspoons in England, Ramsgate clearly has a lot to offer. Over the last 6 years, several neighbourhoods here have shot up in national deprivation rankings.
We have very particular challenges in Thanet, partly because we're surrounded on 3 sides by sea. That makes some of the things that you would normally do for economic regeneration somewhat challenging. It also means that it's harder to encourage people to come and stay for work, because the travel to work area is more limited. And even though we've got the high-speed rail into London, that's expensive, and we don't therefore have the kind of connectivity, and particular local connectivity, that really helps people get the kind of jobs and opportunities that they need.
On Ramsgate High Street, it's hard to ignore how quiet it is. 1 in 4 shops are empty lots, but people here tell us it's a far cry from how they remember it.
All the shops seem to have moved out of the town. So to go shopping, there's very little choice here.
This is nothing like the high street that I remember, as a boy. Like many other high streets, it's declined.
You can see people coming in here trying to run businesses, they just can't afford it. They can't afford to heat the spaces. And I wish they got more breaks. I wish it was easier for people to use these stores.
Councillor John Davis is the shadow leader of Thanet District Council and represents Pegwell Ward in Ramsgate.
We need an opportunity for our youngsters who get some of the best educations in the country, let's remember, in this area. They have no choice but to join an exodus, to go elsewhere, and then hopefully one day to come back. I think what we need to do in order to protect and revive our community, and that's across this island as well as Ramsgate, is start to develop some pride in the place, but B, some policies that actually support regeneration and the creation of meaningful jobs.
While the stats may feel less positive, it is clear here people are proud of their area and are hopeful for change. Chloe Brewster for KMTV in Ramsgate.
Now, in the last couple of hours, a rival train company to Eurostar has said it's preparing to set out Channel Tunnel plans this month, which could put Kent stations back on the international map. The Italian Trenitalia, much like last week's announcement from Virgin Trains, has pledged to run services from Ashford International if successful. Neither of Kent's international rail stations, Ashford and Ebbsfleet, have been serviced by Eurostar since 2021. Megan Shaw joins me in the studio now with more. Tell us about this update.
Well, as yet, there aren't any concrete plans from Trenitalia. They've just kind of announced that within the next month, they'll kind of come out with future plans and their outline for them. So that would make Trenitalia the second rival company to Eurostar, which has had a monopoly of the Channel Tunnel since it opened in 1994. We also saw last week that Richard Branson's Virgin Trains have been granted access to the same depot that the Eurostar uses. That's Temple Mills in London. So they are hoping to start running their own services to Europe in 2030.
Not a different kind of form of transport, but all like buses, they all come at once with this news. What does it mean for Kent, this update?
So as you mentioned there, the Eurostar hasn't stopped at Kent's two international stations, that's Ashford and Ebbsfleet, since 2020. They recently confirmed to the Times that there is no future interest in reopening these two stations in Kent, as they claimed in 2019 that only 4% of their passengers boarded these trains in Kent. But I spoke to people in Ashford last week with the Virgin News, and they were saying there is definitely a demand there, and they would like to see that reopening, although we don't have any confirmation that Trenitalia will be stopping at Kent or what these plans will look like at all. In general, competition, when there's competition and different rail providers, it does often lead to lower fare prices.
And it's not the only rumour of Ashford and Ebbsfleet coming back into the fold, is it?
Absolutely not. So as I said, last week we had that announcement from Virgin Trains where they're getting the green light to share Eurostar's depot. They also confirmed they are planning on reinstating those Kent international services, but that could only happen if these stations were able to accommodate this new international infrastructure. It's thought that it would cost £4 million to reinstate Ashford, so again, we don't know.
Lots to keep tabs on. Megan, thank you very much for those updates. Now it's time for a quick break. We'll come back with more stories from across the county in a few moments' time. Welcome back to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. Tributes are being paid to the matriarch of the world-famous Blean bison herd, who's died at the age of 21. She was among the first to roam wild in Britain for thousands of years after her release in 2022, and rangers from the Wildwood Trust say she was the rock of the rewilding project. Her death comes just days after the birth of a new calf, bringing the herd's number to 9, as Kari Damani reports.
Tributes are being paid across Kent following the death of one of the first bison to roam freely in the UK for thousands of years. She was 21 years old and was a vital part amongst key conservation groups here in the county.
The Blean Bison Project is a wilding project in Kent, West Blean and Thornton Woods, and it's a partnership between Kent Wildlife Trust and the Wildwood Trust. And our aims are by introducing European bison into compartments of the woodland. They will be able to restore natural processes, doing their natural behaviour in order to restore balance and benefit biodiversity in the woodland.
Released in 2022, the herd forms part of a project to increase the diversity of Blean woods and help make the landscape more resilient to climate change. The bison has improved the forest found here in Kent by allowing more light in through the trees due to their many habits.
So now with the matriarch gone, the future is still very bright for the herd. We've just had 3 new calves born this summer and autumn, 1 female and 2 males, and they're really thriving. And with the matriarch sadly passed on now, the herd is still doing well. And what naturally happens is that one of the older females will take the place and the role of the matriarch and be passing down that knowledge and leading the herd as our previous matriarch did. So now with the matriarch gone, the future is still very bright for the herd. We've just had 3 new calves born this summer and autumn, 1 female and 2 males, and they're really thriving. And with the matriarch sadly passed on now, the herd is still doing well.
Her passing comes within 3 days of the birth of the 9th calf in her herd. Now, a new lead female has emerged from the pack, continuing the role that the matriarch is leaving behind. Much has been said about the importance the matriarch has played in the Kent wildlife and how much of a legacy she will leave in her passing.
Kari Damani there. Now, don't forget, you can keep up to date with all your latest stories across Kent by logging on to our website, kmtv.co.uk. There you'll find all our reports, including this one about Medway Council's controversial Red Route scheme.
In May, double yellow lines on some major Medway roads turned red. It was a choice questioned by traders and residents alike, with the whole scheme coming to more than £800,000. It's been 5 months since the red marks first appeared, and they've already started to fade quite significantly in some areas.
So it appears in order to enforce these red markings, the yellow ones were just simply painted over. But the issue with this is that with things like harsh weather and cars driving over them, the yellow starts to peek through.
Many residents have expressed their discontent with the markings, particularly business owners along the roadside, one of whom claims the traffic management scheme forced him to shut down.
Braining now is a rat run. People drive through it, they don't come here. And that was down to the red route and down to the extortionate fees for the parking, which are going to only go up next year. The first week of the red route, we were down 40% in footfall. And that's obviously going to have an impact on revenues going forward. Costs going up, revenue going down, it's not a good recipe.
It's not just business owners that aren't happy with the scheme. Some local residents find the cost a waste of taxpayers' money.
Well, considering they cost £850,000 worth of taxpayers' money, absolutely ridiculous. That money could be better spent bringing people into the community, lowering the parking charge, and also it's absolutely scandalous.
But Medway Council remains confident in their choice, believing that the red routes will stop illegal and unsafe parking to create a safer network for all road users.
What I would say is that the red routes didn't enforce any restrictions which weren't already there. It just changed the way that they were enforced. So these were double yellow lines previously. No one should have been stopping there, so nothing should have changed in that respect. What did happen when we brought in the red routes was as a response to feedback from businesses, from residents, from other stakeholders. We actually introduced additional loading areas. So these were places that no one could legally stop before, but now they can. So I'm afraid I don't accept that claim, because nobody is doing anything now that they weren't prohibited from doing before.
With the red route approaching its 6th month mark, it remains unclear whether Medway's decision will bring safer, smoother roads. But what is clear is that the scheme continues to leave residents seeing red in more ways than one. Maisie Walker for KMTV, Raynham.
And now it's time to take a quick look at the weather. Looking at this evening, it'll be mostly cloudy with temperatures of 14 degrees around the top with Dartford and then down into tomorrow morning. Pretty consistent across the board, 14 degrees across the county, wind speeds up to 11 miles per hour. Into tomorrow evening, that'll be going up to 15 throughout most of the county, wind speeds slightly dropping to 13 miles per hour. And head to the weekend and next week. Again, fairly consistent temperatures, overcast throughout the weekend and into Monday. New interactive signs have been launched across Folkestone to help residents prepare for future cases of flash flooding. The Environment Agency and Kent County Council have installed the technology along the Pent stream using a mobile platform called Hello Lamppost. People can scan QR codes to learn about flood risks, watch archive footage from the 1996 disaster and get practical safety advice. It comes as hundreds of homes in the town remain in a rapid response flood zone where severe flooding can strike with little warning, as Emma Crofts told me a little earlier on. Let's start at the very beginning with this. Tell us how the new talking signs all work.
So they're very simple. They involve an interactive QR code that you can access from any of your smart devices. And when you hit that interactive QR code, you'll be taken through to an interactive chat. And basically, you can ask anything that you would like to know about flood risk in the local area of Folkestone, which is where we're focusing this campaign. And it will give you helpful advice and links for where you can get more advice.
And tell us about why Folkestone's been chosen in particular. I know historically there's obviously been floods there, but tell us why exactly Folkestone has been chosen.
So Folkestone's quite unique in the sense that it is a very steep-sided valley with the River Pent, which some of your audience may know, running down towards the sea at Folkestone Harbour. And what can happen with a small, steep channel like the River Pent is it can react very quickly to heavy, intense rainfall. And what we need is for people to know what to do ahead of time should a flood like that happen. So we're using this new type of technology to reach out to people who live, work or travel through the local area to find out as much information as they can ahead of time.
Now, you said it's very simple. Obviously, for a lot of digital natives and QR codes, people who are aware of that, that obviously is going to be fairly straightforward. There are quite a lot of elderly members of the community in Folkestone, and not to be, obviously ageist about it, but might not be so technically au fait. Is there a worry about that in case anything like flash floods happen, and how will they get those warnings?
So we do publish all our warnings online. As you said, some people might not be digitally attached. So we also make sure that they are put out through local radio stations and the TV as well. And if people do need more advice and they're not sure what to do, if they can either themselves go to gov.uk/flood or ask a friend or neighbour to do that. And we can always get in contact with them directly and give them advice that they might need. So we also do have our floodline available as well, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can speak to a person, get help and advice and find out what warnings are in your area. And you can phone that easily on 0345 988 1188.
We've had a particularly wet autumn so far. I was just wondering about the timing of this announcement coming out. Is it because that there's a fear that there's going to be there could be particular flash flood cases around the corner? Is it because we've seen other things that have happened in Kent recently? What's around the timing of it being now?
So really the timing is around opportunity. This technology is relatively new and it's something that we've been able to get the funding with conjunction with Kent County Council to actually put in place in the local area. It's on the back of Flood Action Week, which was on the week commencing the 13th of October. So it's just following on from that. We're not expecting anything particular in terms of flash flooding in the very near future. In fact, flash flooding is more likely to happen in the summer months than it is in the winter months. but we'd like people to take the time, thinking about the time of year, thinking about changing in the weather as we move towards kind of wetter months, to think about what they could do to be prepared in case of extreme weather or flooding situations.
And just one final question. This obviously, there's always a question around global warming and the impact this could have on flash flooding or just flooding in general. How have you seen that this has impacted Folkestone, the wider Kent area, and is there kind of plans to bring this technology to other parts of Kent and possible hotspots that also might see this issue arise?
Yeah, so we are seeing over the last couple of decades that we are experiencing more of those intense summer storms, and we are experiencing changing weather over the course of the winter. And what we know from the climate change predictions is that we are expecting to have those hotter, drier summers where we might see those more intense thunderstorms, but we're also expecting that we can see those warmer, wetter winters where we'll have prolonged wet weather across the winter months. This is the first time we've used it in the county, as I say, and Folkestone is one of our areas where we're particularly keen to make sure that people are aware in case of a flood because of that flash flooding risk and that it can happen so quickly. But we are keen, hopefully in the future, if this is a successful pilot, to be able to roll this out to other hotspots across the county, working in conjunction with our partners such as the County Council and other district councils.
Now it's time for a quick break, but coming up, a recap of our top stories from across the county. We'll be back with Ollie Leader outside Kent County Council with all the latest. Be back with us in a few minutes' time. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight live on KMTV. I'm Cameron Tucker. Here are your top stories on Thursday, the 6th of November. County Hall chaos. Kent County Council's reform leadership faces legal challenges from former members. Data dismay. Ramsgate named as Kent's most deprived town in new survey. And joining the Fab Four, KMTV's film expert Chris DC talks about the former Maidstone schoolgirl announced to star in Beatles biopic. A look back at our top story this evening. Kent County Council leader Lyndon Cumcarran and Reform UK are facing legal challenges from former party members of Reform. One expelled councillor is threatening to take the party to an industrial tribunal, while another is investigating a claim for libel. Ollie Leader has been at County Hall all day and has more. Ollie, quite a few updates. Take us through them.
So, Cameron, you're right. There has been two big legal threats for Reform UK and also KCC today. Let's start with Robert Ford. He's one of the expelled councillors. Basically what happened was there were unofficial complaints made towards him regarding misconduct. He denies all of this, and that's why he came out earlier today, stood basically where I'm stood right now, saying that he's going to take KCC and Reform UK to court for libel, for defamation, for hurting his reputation on this. The other figure is Isabella Kemp. She's a Sheppey councillor and she was actually working for Reform UK HQ. She was dismissed last week. She's now launching industrial action and in the meantime she's been suspended. But she was actually the chair of the Adult Social Care Committee, which is really crucial within the council for scrutinising policy around adult social care, which, as we know, is a big issue for many people here in the county and something that costs KCC an awful lot of money. And someone who was quite unhappy about all of these suspensions is Mark Hood, the Green Party group leader. And this is what he told me about all of this earlier today.
Does it look like business as usual? Every time we have a cabinet committee meeting or any kind of meeting, one of the first items is election of a chair, election of a new vice chair. So that's not business as usual. We're struggling. We've got vacancies on the committees. We've got people who just roll up. When they do roll up, they haven't read the papers. They don't interact. They just, you know. You have to be proactive. If you're a county councillor, you have to read the agendas and you have to be over your...
Well, the council leader, Lyndon Cumcarran, did respond to all of this earlier today and she doesn't seem particularly fazed.
Well, the direction of the council hasn't changed at all. We're still getting on with the job exactly as we were at the last full council meeting. The fact that we've had to discipline and expel a few members who are causing an awful lot of trouble within the group and of course leaking confidential videos of confidential meetings, you know, that is incredibly serious because of course as councillors we must be free to discuss anything and everything behind closed doors, and what happens in a private meeting really must stay private because we talk about an awful lot of confidential things in this council. So the fact that somebody is prepared to leak a video to attempt to damage my leadership is very serious, and that had to be dealt with before we could regroup. But we have regrouped and we might be slightly leaner in number, but I can assure you we are much, much stronger.
Now, some breaking news. 2 men have been charged with murder after the death of a man in Chatham. The victim, who's now been named as 43-year-old Charles Belsham, was treated for a single stab wound by paramedics but died at the scene on Saturday morning. With this evening's updates from the last hour is Maisie Walker. Maisie, what can you tell us?
So detectives have charged 2 men with murder following an investigation into the death of a man in Chatham. Kent Police was called at 10:12 a.m. on Saturday the 1st of November following a report of a serious assault at a private address in Castle Road. Emergency services attended the scene and a man who can now be named as Charles Belsham, 43, was treated for a single stab wound injury by paramedics, however died from his injury. An investigation was commenced, and during inquiries, officers were able to link the incident to 2 other reported offences. This related to a car being set alight outside a home in the Waterslade area of Chatham earlier on in the 1st of November, and the theft of a vehicle from Palmerston Road on the Wednesday the 29th of October. Officers charged 3 men in connection with the case on the evening of the 5th of November. Mark Jesse, 51, was charged with murder, as was 51-year-old Shane Rule. Mr Jesse was further charged alongside Ashley Robinson, 40 years old, with arson and handling stolen goods. All 3 appeared at Folkestone Magistrates Court on the 6th of November and have remained in custody. Mr Jesse and Mr Rule will appear at Maidstone Crown Court on Monday the 10th of November regarding the charge of murder. Mr Jesse and Mr Robinson will next appear at Maidstone Crown Court on Friday the 5th with respect to the arson and handling stolen good charges. A 45-year-old woman was arrested in connection with the incident on the 1st of November but has been bailed pending further investigation. Officers are continuing to appeal for any witnesses who have not yet spoken to the police to contact them.
Rosie, thank you very much for all those updates. We'll obviously keep tabs on those here on KMTV. Now, in other news, illegal St George's and Union Jack flags are being removed at the expense of the taxpayer, Kent County Council has announced. A recent statement by Medway Council says all illegally erected flags will be taken down as the national flag has been used as a sign of division and intolerance. Similar to illegal advertising and fly posting, a large number of flags erected over the summer are in breach of Section 132 of the Highways Act. We spoke to Labour councillor Vince Maple earlier today to comment on his statement from earlier today.
Every single time a flag that was put on a lamppost, that is breaking the law. Section 132 of the 1980 Highways Act has been breached. So we have taken the right thing to take those flags down. It's taken slightly longer than I would have liked, but I want to thank the hard-working contractors that have done that work at a very quick pace. We've retained all the flags and we're thinking about what we will do with those from a community project perspective. But most importantly, I'd say this, is our legal team is currently looking at all of the evidence to take the strongest possible action against those who have put those flags up. If people want to put flagpoles in their gardens, on the side of their flats, I support them on that.
A turkey farm in Tenterden have said the recent bird flu outbreak in Kent shouldn't deter Christmas shoppers ahead of the festive season. It comes after the Happy Pants Ranch in Newington confirmed a case last week, which led to them having to cull several of their birds. Eagle Heights Wildlife Foundation in Ainsford have also been forced to temporarily close its doors. Rebecca Howe from John Howe Turkey spoke to us earlier on ahead of the festive period.
We are understandably worried because if it hits your farm, it's devastating. That said, we aren't on any migratory flight paths. We're not near a big body of water, so we don't have the seabirds and everything that could, or water birds that can be an issue. What we really love to see are the birds running all over the place, all through the woodland, etc. So that side of it will be curtailed, which is sad. The really key thing now is to get the vaccine sorted. The government are not keen on going forward with it. I think probably just down to how much it would cost to do. I think it's expensive to administer and to monitor.
Now for a look at all the latest sports news from across the county. Here's Eleanor Gonsalves.
Gillingham assistant manager Richard Dobson has words of encouragement for the struggling team en route to their Saturday fixture against Bristol Rovers. Dobson, who has been in charge of the Gills since manager Gareth Ainsworth's heart operation, is hopeful that this tough spell is a test of the team's mentality and says that if Gillingham can get through this difficult period, they will be a stronger squad. Gillingham have gone winless in their last 7 games, dropping from top spot to 8th in the League 2 table, but hopes are high with the return of manager Gareth Ainsworth around the corner. Now, in hockey news, Harrison Lillis has made his 500th appearance for the Invicta Dynamos in a 1-0 win over Swindon Wildcats 2 last Sunday. Lillis first started playing for the Invicta Dynamos under-16s back in 2007 and has since spent almost his entire career with the team. It was another Harrison, however, who won the game for the Dynamos, as 18-year-old Harrison Prentice scored the winning goal, his first for the season. And then, returning to football, Maidstone United defender Taylor Foran has sustained a hamstring injury and will be out for the next couple of weeks. The injury occurred in the opening minutes of United's 2-1 defeat against Tunbridge last Saturday. Foran has been a key player for Maidstone since joining on loan from Bromley and will be a big loss for the team over the next couple of weeks. But the team's manager, George Elacobi, says it is an opportunity for the other players to step in and make sure they stake their claim. And finally, Ramsgate's caretaker manager Lee Martin explains how former boss Ben Smith put him forward for the role and how he's going to revive the team's fortunes. Smith, who led the Rams to the Isthmian South East title last season, stepped down from the role after a 5-0 defeat at Avley on Saturday and recommended Lee Martin for the role to the chairman of Ramsgate. The Rams have been on a 7-game winless streak in all competitions, and with Martin's first game in charge set to take place this Saturday, he is hoping to improve the togetherness of the squad.
And we'll have more updates ahead of the weekend's fixtures tomorrow. But before we go into our next break, just a little teaser of what's coming up. We'll be recapping our story of Haggis the Pygmy Hippo, who's had fame on SNL, who's here in Kent. And we'll have Chris Deasy with all the latest film headlines from across the county in a few moments. Welcome back to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. Now, don't forget, you can keep up to date with all our latest stories from across Kent by logging on to our website, kmtv.co.uk. There you'll find all our reports, including this one about Haggis, the pygmy hippo who gained fame after appearing on Saturday Night Live in the US and has now arrived in Kent.
She's small, she's sassy, and she's a global star. Haggis the pygmy hippo starred on Saturday Night Live in the USA and captured hearts when she was born in Edinburgh. And now she's making a splash in Kent. And just like me, her reversing needs a little bit of work.
I'm outside Wingham Wildlife Park to wish a rare pygmy hippo happy birthday in her new home in Kent.
The tiny hippo, native to the forests and swamps of West Africa, was born in 2024 and left Edinburgh on the 26th of October before heading to the site in Kent. She will add to the international breeding programme for the endangered species, with an estimated figure around 2,000 individuals remaining in the wild.
We need more babies, so yeah. So it's hard to get boys. They breed more girls than they do boys, but we want baby haggises. So hopefully, when she's old enough, we'll get a breeding recommendation, and then we'll be able to breed. Hopefully, if we've got a boy by then.
Haggis was born on Wednesday, the 30th of October last year, meaning today birthday celebrations were in order. She was given a hippo-friendly cake and birthday cards, though she didn't really seem to like the colour pink.
It's early days yet, but she's, I don't know, she's really, she knows when she wants a treat. She's like already, she pretends don't want it, and then she comes around and then she's like waiting for it. So at first she used to just keep her lips shut. Now she's like, no, I have it now. Starting to open her mouth ready for it now. So yeah, she's getting better and better. But it's just time. It just takes time. But in 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, you'll see there'll be a difference in the animal, and she'll recognise her keepers properly. And remember, they don't talk Scottish neither.
It's only been a couple of days since Haggis hip-toed into her new home in Kent, but she's clearly making herself at home, and it's clear she's going to be a big character. Maisie Walker for KMTV, Canterbury.
And now it's time to take a quick look at the weather. And looking at this evening, it's going to be pretty consistent temperatures across the county, wind speeds of 6 miles per hour topping, and into tomorrow morning, again about 14 degrees with a chance of rain. A chance of rain continuing into the evening, wind speeds of 11 and 13 miles per hour. And a look to the weekend, pretty similar conditions, looking more or less overcast. Monday, similar story, 14 degrees. And as ever on Thursdays, ahead of the Kent Film Club, we're joined by our resident film buff, Chris DC. We have a number of Kent-related stories. We're going to get stuck in with probably the biggest one from the week. This lady here, Mia McKenna Bruce, Maidstone, former schoolgirl, getting cast in one of the most anticipated films in the few years. And I say films because it's quite interesting what Sam Mendes is going to be doing with this project. Tell us a little, bring us up to speed.
Well, Sam Mendes, who of course we know from American Beauty, Oscar winner. Also, of course, he's directed some of the Bond films. Great variety of films, and of course doing a Beatles biopic, but as you say, but doing them as independent entries. And Mia McKenna Bruce, who, as you say, went to school in Maidstone, and there was Rising Star Award just a few years ago at the BAFTAs. Right. She was in How to Have Sex, which is set on an island, group of teenagers just before the GCSEs. Really moving anthropological study. Will be now playing one of the wives of Ringo Starr. So I mean, they're formidable. I mean, great for Kent, but what a brilliant film that this is going to be. And I like the way it's like with Priscilla, which is the film about Elvis, looking at Elvis and the myth through the lens of the wife of Priscilla. And I think that gives it a very different slant. Obviously, we don't quite know what Sam Mendes will be doing with this film, but it's very exciting that there might be a chance to have all the Beatles looked at, if you like, in isolation, but also all coming together through these 4 independent entries.
And it's fascinating, isn't it? Because there's been a lot of, especially documentaries about the Beatles, and a few years ago there was Across the Universe, which was a very psychedelic musical, but about the Beatles story. Every sort of take on the Beatles has been them as a whole. And like you said, these are going to be 4 independent films over a period of years. And, you know, that's a really original take on their story.
But it's not the only original take. If you saw Yesterday, just a few years ago, with the Richard Curtis element, which was brilliant because it was also saying what would happen if the Beatles hadn't come together. It's almost like somebody else would have to have made their music. And then you have a sort of, well, John Lennon would still be alive, perhaps. So the film was then raising all these sort of questions, sort of Back to the Future type framework as well. So it's yet to see what Sam Mendes will be doing, but it's going to be very exciting. There was also that film about the fifth Beatle that came out in the 90s as well. So it's, you know, there are lots of different creative takes that we've seen over the years.
And there's a lot of big names signed up to the project. We know Paul Mescal's in there, Harris Dickinson, Barry Keoghan, and playing the Beatles. But Mia McKenna-Bruce to be amongst those names, and she really is a rising star at the moment.
Now, when I saw her in How to Have Sex, what I thought was really powerful is that it's this idea of these teenagers going on holiday, but there's fissures between them, and it gets into quite dark territory. She's a brilliant actress, because on the one hand, it's like they're having a bit of fun, it's their GCSEs. Like After Sun, actually also with Paul Mescal, it's a film about trauma and the way in which that you're very sure watching this film that those teenagers, despite promising they'll be there forever, they're not going to be there years after. So she put in such a magnetic and quite chilling performance. I mean, she's in her mid to late 20s, but you know, she has a wonderful career ahead of her, that's for sure.
Now, a rising actor to, and a bit of a gear change as well, to some more established actors. Jennifer Lawrence and Emma Stone in the news at the moment, producing, maybe not a drama that you would expect, the Miss Piggy movie. Tell us a little bit, what lineup that you wouldn't quite expect?
It would, because it was the 2014 Muppet movie that was filmed at the historic dockyard. Now, interesting to see these two, because I saw Bergolia just the other evening with Emma Stone. That was one of the most outrageous films I've ever watched. The director, Yorgos Lanthimos, has done some pretty quite off-kilter films before. And Emma Stone is in a film called Die My Love, which is on release tomorrow. So they're very much in the news at the moment, both Oscar winners. Jennifer Lawrence expected to win an Oscar for the film I've just mentioned, Die My Love, and then the Miss Piggy in the middle. I mean, I love that.
Up for an Oscar as well, you think?
Well, she's like Marilyn Monroe.
She would probably think that she would be, yes. And the Muppets, they're such an institution in America and around the world as well. You know, I grew up watching them. They seem to have appealed to different generations at different times. What about you? Are you a fan? And also, if you were to be one of the Muppets, which Muppet do you think you most associate with?
Well, let's just say we had a workplace quiz some years ago for the best Christmas movie ever, and it wasn't Die Hard, it was the Muppet Christmas Carol that came first. So that tells you everything. I have to say it's because Michael Caine, who plays superbly with the Muppets and treats them as fellow actors, that made that work. Do you know, I mean, obviously Kermit the Frog, but Miss Piggy, I think when she was interviewed, was it on Parkinson back in the 70s, and did the same thing as Rod Hull. You know, what a brilliant, you know, interplay. And you're almost thinking she's more three-dimensional than most of the actresses who've sat on the sofa.
Now, you alluded to Muppets Most Wanted, 2014 film, being filmed at the historic dockyard in Chatham. Another film that, many films have been filmed there, but one that's also in the news today. The Mummy was filmed there in 1999, and it's coming back as well. Very exciting news.
To have a fourth one, and because Brendan Fraser in that original, it's such a good swashbuckling, you know, very different take on the Mummy in some ways to the, you know, what you had in the 1930s, for example. We'll see how different this is, but that film with the librarian mixed with all the supernatural foe as well. We've had it come up on Kent Film Club as well. With one of our local filmmakers, Howard from Herne Bay, chose that, and he was very much works in the film industry as well. So this is so exciting, and again, we'll put Kent on the map. If as I hope, it will be filmed here.
Now, they obviously tried to bring it back a few years ago. Image here from the Tom Cruise reboot, which wasn't received incredibly positively like the first Mummy in 1999 was.
Well, as a birthday treat to myself, back in 2017, I watched that film, and let's put it this way: it was almost like what you'd think would be a really badly made parody. I really hope that the version coming out next will learn from the mistakes.
Well, excitingly, Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, the stars of those first 2 films, really, and Brendan Fraser in the first 3, have said that they are coming back to it. What a career both of them have had in those almost 20 years since the film came
and
out.
both Oscar winners. Brendan Fraser winning, of course, of just 2 years ago. In a very hotly contested race, because it was thought it might go to, for the film Elvis. But also Rachel Weisz has won an Oscar as well, back in sort of around 2005 for The Constant Gardener. So it does feel that when you have actors of that calibre who are returning to roles that made them at least commercial successes, you just know that this is going to be a really strong performance.
I say 20 years ago, sorry, that is a misspeak. 30 years ago that's almost that the first Mummy
99?
came out in 99,
I saw it.
exactly.
July 1999.
And like you said, hopefully these films, and obviously Kent is a great location for it. And it's just interesting to look at that variety. The Muppets film using the same location as the Mummy. So many places drawn to the historic dockyard.
And not just that, because some of the cinemas, Cineworld, are showing all the Mission Impossible films every night this week. And yes, is the answer to your next question. And of course, all I'm ever doing is looking out for the historic dockyard in Chatham, of course, so I can report back on KMTV.
Yes, you're doing good work for a sort of public service broadcast, civic duty, absolutely. Chris, we covered lots of ground there. I'm sure we're going to have more stories from across the county and the world of film next week. Kent Film Club coming up after this. Thank you so much for joining us. That is it for Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. There's more news made just for Kent.